Folks, we are back with reading R.K. Narayan's Swami and Friends. And we finished chapter 2 last time. Today we start on chapter 3, titled Swami's Grandmother. In the ill-ventilated dark passage between the front hall and the dining room of Swami's house, Swaminathan's grandmother lived with all her belongings, which consisted of an elaborate bed made of 5 carpets, 3 bed sheets, and 5 pillows, a square box made of jute fiber, and a small wooden box containing copper coins, cardamoms, cloves, and areca nut. Can you imagine? This is in the house in the village. It's a very primitive, about 100 years ago. So it is all very primitive and very limited. So there is a hall and the dining room. From the hall, they have to go to the dining room, and then between there is a passage. And in that passage, the grandmother was living. That was her room. And she had all her belongings with her. What are all the belongings? Elaborate bed made of 5. Her bed was made of 5 carpets. Put 1 carpet, on top of it put another carpet, 3rd carpet, 4th, 5th carpet. And then 1 bed sheet, 2 bed sheets, 3 bed sheets. Then pillow, 5 pillows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a box. In that box, she kept all her things. Her coins, cardamoms. You know, cardamom is the elaichi, which you put in the mouth for very good fragrance. It is used in cooking. Cloves. Cloves is also areca nut. These are all for putting in the mouth, for refreshing the mouth and all that. So after the night meal, when with his head on his granny's lap, nestling close to her, Swaminathan felt very snug and safe in the faint atmosphere of cardamom and cloves. See how this Swaminathan is a little boy, he is about 12 or something like that. And in his home, in that passage between the living room and dining room, where his grandmother lives, Swaminathan was lying with his head on her, lap. And the grandmother would talk to him, and they would exchange stories. And the grandmother would put the cardamom and the cloves in her mouth. So when she spoke, the fragrance of the cardamom and the cloves will come out. "Oh, Granny," he cried, "you don't know what a great fellow Rajam is." He told her the entire story of the first enmity between Rajam and Mani and their subsequent friendship. "You know, he has a real police dress," said Swaminathan. "Is it? What does he want a police dress for?" asked Granny. "His father is the police superintendent. He is the master of every policeman here." Granny was impressed. She said that it must be a tremendous office indeed. Since then, recounted the days when her husband, Swaminathan's grandfather, was a powerful sub-magistrate, in which office he made the police force tremble before him, and the fiercest dacoits of the place flee. So the grandmother she talked about her husband, that is Swaminathan's grandfather. Her husband, the grandfather, was a magistrate, and he was a powerful sub-magistrate, and his office was very high and important, and the police were under him, and the magistrate would issue order to the police, he would issue order to the lawyers, to the criminals, and make everyone tremble. And the fiercest dacoits of the place would be afraid and run away. Swaminathan waited impatiently for her to finish the story, but she went on, rambled, confused, mixed up various incidents that took place at different times. This happens when somebody becomes old. They'll start telling a story and then ramble, go on, go on, go on, and then they'll mix up story one, story two, story three, and then ultimately they will get lost, and then they'll somehow escape. Hmm. Then he said, "That will do, Granny. That will do. That's enough. Let me tell you something about Rajam. Do you know how many marks he gets in arithmetic? He gets all the marks. Does he, child? No, silly. He gets 90 marks out of 100. So grandmother said, good, but you must also try to get marks like that. You know, Swami, your grandfather used to frighten the examiners with his answers sometimes. When he answered a question, he did it in a tenth of the time that the others took to do it, very, very quickly. And then his answers would be so powerful that his teachers would give him 200 marks out of 100. When he passed his FA, he got such a big medal. I wore it as a pendant for years till now. When did I remove it? Oh, yes, when your aunt was born. No, it wasn't your aunt. It was your father was born. I remember on the 10th day of after he was born. No. Yeah, I was right. It was when your aunt was born. No. And where's that medal now? Oh, I gave it away to your aunt, and she melted it and made 4 bangles out of it. It was a gold medal, and she melted it. The aunt, she used it to make bangles. The fool, and such a flimsy bangles too. I have always maintained that she is the worst fool in our family. Oh, enough, Granny, said Swaminathan. You go on bothering about old unnecessary stories. Won't you listen to Rajam? Oh, yes, dear, the grandmother said. Granny, when Rajam was a small boy, he killed a tiger. Indeed, the brave little boy, said grandmother. You are saying it just to please me. You don't believe it. Swaminathan started the story enthusiastically. Rajam's father was camping in a forest. He had his son with him. 2 tigers came upon them. Suddenly, one knocking down the father from behind, the other began chasing Rajam, who took shelter behind a bush and shot it dead with his gun. Granny, are you asleep? Swaminathan asked. No, I am listening, said the grandmother. Let me see, how many tigers came? 2 tigers came, said Granny. Swaminathan became angry, indignant at his grandmother's inaccuracy. Here I am hoarse, telling you very important things, and you are falling asleep and imagine all sorts of nonsense. I'm not going to tell you any story anymore. I know why you are so indifferent. You hate Rajam. No, it is a lovely story. He is a lovely little boy, Granny said with conviction, though she had never seen Rajam. Swaminathan was pleased. Next moment, a new doubt assailed him. Granny, probably you don't believe the tiger incident. Oh, I believe every word of it, Swaminathan, Granny said soothingly. Swami was pleased but added a warning. He would shoot anyone that called him a liar. Granny expressed her approval of this attitude and then begged leave to start the story of Harishchandra, who, just to be true to his word, lost his throne, his wife, and his child, and then got them all back in the end. She was halfway through it when Swaminathan's rhythmic snoring punctuated her narration, and she lay down to sleep herself. Saturday afternoon, since this is the next paragraph, Saturday afternoon. Since Saturday and Sunday came so rarely, to Swaminathan it seems absurd to waste time at home gossiping with Granny and Mother on doing sums. It was his father's definite orders that Swaminathan should not start loafing in the afternoon and that he should stay at home and do schoolwork. But this order was seldom obeyed. Swaminathan sat impatiently in his study, trying to wrest the meaning out of a poem in his English reader. His father stood before the mirror, winding a turban around his head. He had put on his silk coat. Now only his spectacles remained. Swaminathan watched his progress keenly. Even the spectacles were on. All that now remained was his watch. Swaminathan felt glad. This was the last item, and after that, father would leave for the court. Mother came in with a tumbler of water in one hand and a plate of betel leaves and nuts in the other. Father drank the water and held out his hand. She gave him a little areca nut and half a dozen neatly rolled betel leaves. He put them all into his mouth, chewing them with great contentment. Swaminathan read at the top of his voice the poem about a woolly sheep. His father fussed about a little for his tiny silver snuff box and spotted handkerchief, which was the most unwashed thing in that house. He hooked his umbrella on his arm. This was really the last signal for starting. Swaminathan had almost closed the book and risen. His father was almost gone out of the room. But Swaminathan stamped his foot under the table. Mother stopped father and said, "By the way, I want some change. The tailor is coming today. He has been pestering me for the last 4 days." So the father said, "Ask him to come tomorrow." And mother said, No, I have to give him today." So father returned to his bureau, searched for the keys, opened it, took out a purse, and gave her the change. "I don't know how I am going to manage things for the rest of the month," said the father, peering into the purse. He locked the bureau, adjusted his turban before the mirror. He took a heavy pinch of snuff and, wiping his nose with the kerchief, walked over. Sam heaved a sigh of relief as his father left. "Bolt the door," came father's voice from the street door. Swaminathan heard the clicking of the bolts. He sat at the window, watched his father turn the corner, and then left his post. His mother was in the kitchen giving instructions to the cook about the afternoon coffee. Granny was sitting up in her bed. "Come here, boy," she cried as soon as she saw him. "I can't. No time now," said Swaminathan. "Please, I will give you 3 paise," she cried. Swaminathan ignored the offer and dashed away. "Where are you going?" Mother asked. "I've got to go," Swaminathan said with a serious face. "Are you going to loaf around in the sun?" "Certainly not," he said. "Wander about recklessly and catch fever?" "No, mother, I'm not going to wander about." "Has your father not asked you to stay at home on holidays?" "Yes, but my drawing master has asked me to see him. I suppose even when I should not go." He added bitterly, "If I fail in the drawing examination, I think you will be pleased." Swaminathan ran down Grove Street, turned to his right, threaded his way through Abu Lane, stood before a low-roofed, dingy house, and gave a low whistle. He waited for a second and repeated it. The door chain clanked. The door opened a little, and Mani's head appeared and said, "Fool, my aunt is here. Don't come in. Go away and wait for me there." So Swaminathan moved away and waited under a tree. The sun was beating down fiercely. The street was almost deserted. A donkey was standing near a gutter, patiently watching its sharp shadow. A cow was munching a broad green plantain leaf. Presently, Mani sneaked out of this house. Rajam's father lived in Lawley Extension, named after the mighty engineer Sir Frederick Lawley, who was at one time the superintending engineer for Malgudi Circle, which consisted of about 50 neat bungalows, mostly occupied by government officials. The trunk road to Trichinopoli passed a few yards in front of their house. Swaminathan and Mani were nervously walking up the short drive leading to Rajam's house. A policeman in uniform shouted to them to stop and came running towards them. Swaminathan felt like turning and running. He appealed to Mani to speak to the policeman. The policeman asked what they were doing there. Mani said in a tone in which overdone carelessness was a trifle obvious. If Rajam is in the house, we are here to see him. He asked us to come. The policeman at once became astonishingly amiable and took them along to Rajam's house. To Mani and Swaminathan, the room looked large. There were chairs in it, actually chairs, and a good big table with Rajam's book arranged neatly on it. What impressed them most was a timepiece on the table. Such a young fellow to own a timepiece? His father seemed to be an extraordinary man. Presently, Rajam entered. He had known that his friends were waiting for him, but he liked to keep them waiting for a few minutes because he had seen his father doing it. So he stood for a few minutes in the adjoining room, biting his nails. When he could keep away no longer, he burst in upon his friends. "Sit down, boys, sit down," he cried when he saw them standing. In a few minutes, they were chatting about odds and ends and sundry matters, discussing their teachers and schoolmasters, their parents, teachers and schoolmates, their parents, toys and games. Rajam took them to a cupboard and threw it open. They beheld astounding things in it: miniature trains and motors, mechanical marvels, and a magic lantern with slides, a good many large picture books, and 100 other things. What interested Mani most was a grim air gun that stood in a corner. Rajam gave them permission to handle anything they pleased. In a short while, Swaminathan was running an engine all over the room. Mani was shooting arrow after arrow from above at the opposite wall. When he tired of it, he took up the gun and devastated the furniture around with lead balls. "Are you fellows, any of you, hungry?" Rajam asked. "No," they said half-heartedly. "Hey," Rajam cried. A policeman entered. So Rajam called, "Hey," and the policeman came. "Go and ask the cook to bring some coffee and tiffin for 3. The ease and authority with which he addressed the policeman filled his friends with wonder and admiration. The cook entered with a big plate full of eatables. He set down the plate on the table. Rajam felt that he must display his authority. "Remove it from the table, you fool," he roared at the cook. The cook removed it and placed it on a chair. "You dirty ass, take it away and don't put it there." "Where am I to put it, Raju?" asked the cook. Rajam burst out, "You rascal, you scoundrel, you talk back to me." The cook made a wry face and muttered something. "Put it on the table," Rajam commanded. The cook obeyed, mumbling, "If you are rude, I am going to tell your mother." "Go and tell her, I don't care," Rajam said. He peered into a cup and cursed the cook for bringing it so dirty. The cook looked up for a moment, quietly lifted the plate and saying, "Come and eat in the kitchen if you want food." He went away. This was a great disappointment. So he took the plate and went away into the kitchen, and he told Rajam, "If you want, you come to the kitchen and eat it." So this was a great disappointment to Swaminathan and Mani, who were waiting with watering mouths. To Rajam, it was a terrible moment. To be outdone by his servant before his friends, he sat still for a few minutes and then said with a forced laugh, "The scoundrel, that cook is a buffoon." "Wait a minute," he went out. After a while, he returned carrying the plate himself. His friends were a bit astonished at this sign of defeat. Obviously, he could not subdue the cook. Swaminathan Puzzled, he said to find out why Rajam did not shoot the cook dead, and Mani wanted to ask if he could be allowed to have his own way with the cook for a few minutes. Mani would have beaten him. But Rajam set their minds at rest by explaining to them, I had to bring this myself. I went in and gave the cook such a kick for his impertinence that he's lying unconscious in the kitchen. So Rajam pretended that he had kicked the cook, and so then they went together with the food and everything and happy. So next time it will be chapter 4, and we close today's reading. Thank you. Bye bye. Corrected 21 minutes.